slides. Okay. So just a quick agenda to go through. I would just introduce who I am, who we are, and why we're having this conversation. The important role that the right financial advisor can play in your life, what you should look for, expect, and ask of that financial advisor, knowing when and how to break up with your financial advisor. I get this question all the time, especially from women. And then we can go through the Q&A. Okay, so at Ellevest, we really started because we realized that nothing bad happens when women have more money. It actually rises all tides. Our CEO will often joke when she's doing presentations on stage, shout out all the things that happen, bad things that happen when women have more money. And someone will say shopping. And as we know in the economy right now, shopping actually keeps the economy going. And so that's actually a positive thing. And so we really look at that when women have more money, it is better for corporations, it is better for our economy, it is better globally. And so at Ellevest, we created a firm really focused on how to put more money into the hands of women, from a digital investment firm that we have with no minimum to a private wealth offering with people with $1 to hundreds of millions of dollars. We were founded in 2014 by Sally Krawcheck. Sally was worked on Wall Street for a long time. She worked at the big banks. She ran Merrill Lynch Wealth Management. She ran Smith Barney. She ran Citi Private Bank, U.S. Trust, most of the big wealth management firms in the world and country. And when she left Wall Street, recognized, there's always this question, women just don't get invested. And big financial institutions will tell you because women are risk averse or they're not interested and, they just don't care about it. But when you actually talk to women and we actually spent time understanding why women weren't getting invested, it was that their financial needs weren't being met. And if you really think about it, when you have assets mostly managed by men, when you have venture capital mostly run by men, mostly given to male-run companies, when you have mutual funds, over 89% of mutual funds are managed by men, when you have hedge funds, private equity, financial advisors, mostly men, it doesn't really scream for a woman, wow, this is something that I really want to be involved in. And so really recognizing that women's financial needs were not being met, we launched Ellevest with the digital investment platform, a community of over 3 million women. And what was core to us was living our mission through our whole business. So we were venture funded by a majority of women, people like Melinda Gates, Penny Pritzker, Melody Hobson's, Venus Williams, some amazing women. We are over 85% women overall. Sometimes I always joke that that maybe it's like too many women at some point. But living diversity, we're 55% people of color. And we actually have over 20% LGBTQIA plus identifying. And that is core to us within our business, is then we serve women and then help women invest in other women. So when we started, we really focused on the gender investment gap, that women keep 70 cents of every dollar in cash, which costs them hundreds of thousands of dollars for the average woman, hundreds of thousands of dollars for the average woman, millions of dollars for us in this room, millions of dollars over our lifetime this costs us that we keep more money. And we can actually control the gender investment gap. There's so many gaps out there. We can actually control the gender investment gap because we can invest. The gender pay gap, we can have lots of conversations about, and there are plenty of people working on that, and something that needs to be solved and not going in the right direction. But we can control the gender investment gap. But then we wanted to take a step further, and we looked at all wealth, all women's wealth. And it's important to note that for every white man's dollar, a woman has 32 cents, and Black and Latinx women have 1 cent on a white man's dollar. So that goes into interest rates, the pink tax, that our careers peak earlier, that we make less money, that we invest less, all of these things within here. And so today we're going to talk about investing. That's just one of the things we can control, but understanding there are many things kind of stacked against this. In this fall, we launched the Women's Financial Health Index, which when we were launching it, I actually was much more bullish on where we would see this. The Women's Financial Health Index took into account many publicly available data points like consumer confidence, inflation, women in leadership, things like that. But then we also, as I noted, have a huge community of women. So we also survey our community to understand where they feel. And what you'll see here all the way on the right is that we're actually at a 5-year low in women's financial wellness. 5-year low. So this is a scale of 1 to 10. And this July, and we just actually redid it yesterday, we're at a 1. That is because inflation is hitting women harder, consumer confidence is, and then look at the other things that we don't necessarily align to money. Things like Roe versus Wade, which then, depending whatever your political opinion is, cost women more to then solve these issues. And so this is extremely important as we think about how we actually deal with our money on a day-to-day basis to understand where we are today and that we together can lift all tides. We always say that it's so important to talk to other women about money, and I get it. It's uncomfortable. There's actually a study that shows that it's you'd much rather talk about death, your own death, than money. And every woman will say, no, that's not true. That's not true. If I asked all of you, would you rather be cremated or buried? You'd have an answer. If I asked you how much money you made, you'd be like, oh my God, I cannot answer that. That's terrible. How dare you? And so there is still this stigma of women talking about money, whereas men get together and they talk about money all the time. And they, that's where they do deals together and do all these things. And so this is really important to understand, again, where we are to where we're going. Oops. Okay. So some the things that we found in this financial wellness index, money stress is dominating women's lives. So we talk about wellness all the time. We all think about how we're spending money on the food we eat, the workouts we do, all of these types of things. But money stress is an enormous part of this. 59%, almost 60% of women stress about money more than once a week. That's an enormous amount of stress. 43% actively worry about money once a day, at least once a day. And it's important to realize we're out worrying men. So we worry about money much more than men do. This is part of our overall wellness. So when we think about your own financial wellness, let's talk about who can help you on this journey. So finding that right financial advisor. So when should you work with a financial advisor? I get this question all the time. It's very confusing. It's always, I worked at JP Morgan for a long time, and it would be do you have to have $50 million to work with a financial advisor? There are places, there's all these different minimums and definitions and all this, but let's forget that for a second and just think about you personally, because there's a place for everyone. And you accumulated wealth, and it's just feeling like it's too complex to deal with at this point. You feel like, oh my God, I have this over here and this, and I need to be thinking about what I'm doing in stocks and bonds. And when I was 22, I bought a Vanguard index. Things have just gotten, more complex, and I need to deal with the balance between that and my business interest or my real estate that I invest in or my concentrated stock position that I have, and really get actual advice in that. I'd say you don't have the time or the desire. I don't care if you have the time. People always, when they're retired, are like, well, now I can learn about investing. But is that what you want to do? Everyone always asks, what's like the top book you recommend? And there are many books, and there's many resources out there that you can learn about investing. And you should 100% learn about investing. But do you want to sit there and understand your incentive stock options versus your non-qualified stock options and the taxation to that, and deal with it on a day-to-day basis, or outsource that to someone? Or are you going through life events or planning for that? Retirement, divorce, having children, buying a house, inheritance, whatever that may be, thinking through, how am I going to solve for myself personally on these issues? Because this is where it gets hard to just call a friend, because people are in different circumstances. And even people who have the same job, the same salary, the same life overall may have different goals or may different things that they're actually planning towards. Why should you start investing, working with a financial advisor? So investing with someone who actually spends all day thinking about your money, I always think about, we spend so much time finding experts in many other parts of our lives, like doctors. As many hours as I could spend on WebMD, I'm still not a doctor at the end of the day. And if I need help, I still have to go to the doctor. If I need insurance, I'm still not going to figure out my own insurance. That's something that's very complex, that is very personal. And so I'm going to find an expert. The same thing with money management. Investing with someone who is an expert, who's thinking about you all day and managing your money. Not, oh, the market's moved and now I have to monitor them type of thing. It's easy to lose sight of the big picture. I think this is really important because this is not just, you could be the most expert advisor in the world. I am the advisor for our CEO, who I noted has run all these big wealth management firms, but she doesn't manage her own money because it's so easy to lose sight of the big picture. And one of the things that, was interesting that I was having a conversation about her recently, she needed money for her daughter's wedding. And she called me and she's like, Emily, I need this money. I'm so stressed about it, blah, 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 blah. And as you can imagine, she's made a lot of money in her life. It's like, why are you so stressed? Like, you can afford it. And why did you used to work 20 hours a day if you're not going to use it in the way you want? She's like, and she called me like 3 weeks later. And she's like, you know what? I needed that. I was so stressed about that money and realizing that I just needed someone to take a step back for me and realize where I am. I think this is really important. It's psychologically challenging to manage your own money. I don't care, again, if you're the biggest expert in the world, because when markets are going down this year, for example, you almost need like that check and balance when you're like, I can't take it anymore. I can't take it. I need to get out of this market because if we go down 10% more, I'm going to lose it. I just can't do this. And you need that person on the other side to show you the graphs, to show you what things happen historically, to help you think through. No, again, we are looking to invest towards your goals. You are still on the right path. Keep going. Procrastinating why inflation wins. I didn't used to have this as one of our items, but inflation being so high, I think it's really important. So to remember, with inflation 7, 8 and change % now, that means that actually your purchasing power, your value, your money is losing that every single year. And yes, the markets have dropped, but markets come back up. They do over time. This will happen. And I promise you it'll happen again in our lifetime, multiple times. And so you have to know that that's going to happen. But your goal, you need to be at least beating inflation, or else you're just working and losing your purchasing power of your money by keeping it in checking or savings account. You also just might need help with decision making. I think a lot of people, and I bet there are a lot of people around you, make decisions that feel very arbitrary. I feel like I could afford this house. I feel like I can pay for my kids' college. Seems right that I could leave this high-paying job to go to another one. But it's really just, a hunch that they have that, it seems that people around me in the same profile do this, so I can do this. Whereas maybe you need someone to actually look at those trade-offs in your life. I'd love to retire at 55. What would I need to do that? Okay, I really wanted to buy that house in Colorado, but I could retire 5 years earlier if I didn't. Okay, well, I can then think, what's more important to me? Is it the house in Colorado, or is it working 5 years longer? Not someone to dictate what you do with your life. Someone to help guide you to make those decisions. And then finally, understanding your time is important. There was a study a few years ago of where women ranked where they wanted to spend their time out of 32 things. And laundry, all these things came up before managing their money. And I actually really think it's because when you manage money, it is for the future. Whereas like if you do your laundry, you have an immediate result. You're like, great, now I have clean clothes. Or anything, you're doing like that. I do the dishes. I've done that. I've, organized something. I've done that. I check things off my work list. I have an immediate result. Versus if you're investing for the long term. And so it's much more difficult to push that off. So what role of financial advisors should and should not have, I think is extremely important. And it's interesting because I was actually having this conversation with my team on Monday of where we're seeing a lot of clients coming from right now. And a lot of it was people who first said no coming back. And I was asking the advisors on my team, why do you think that is? What are they sharing with you? And it was that a lot of people went to advisors who promised more than they actually do. And what's the point of that? You're just going to disappoint someone. I don't really know, but promising more than they're experts in. And so your financial advisor should be an expert in you're helping with your financial plan. You can ask them that. Are you a certified financial planner? Do you have certified financial planners on staff to help me with that financial plan? They're helping you invest your money. They're typically on a discretionary basis. There are still like the old school brokerage firms who are making money, which we can talk about, but they're there to help you guide to invest on that path, to manage your money on a day-to-day basis, to say the market's moved, I should make changes, to do things like tax loss harvesting, which is a benefit that you can actually create in your portfolio in a year like this. What are they typically not experts in? They're typically not insurance experts. While someone may, say, we understand this and we can help you, you really need to bring in that expert. I always tell people, while I broadly understand, if you have X amount of money, what the gifting limits are. If you live in California, for example, probate system is really terrible. We should talk to an attorney about a trust. Am I going to create your estate plan? No. And that is where I've seen actually a lot of women coming back very disappointed that financial advisors are not your accountants. They're not your attorneys, are not your insurance people. You really need to have a team. And I think when you have that team work in the right place is where you find the best results. And I actually think it's really important that that team speaks with each other. I love when our clients actually just connect us to their attorney, to their accountant, or we recommend them and we were all connected, because then we all know what's going on and we can keep each other in mind in the best way. Like I had a client's attorney call me yesterday saying, hey, I'm like, just an FYI, we need to open this trust by the end of the year. Guess what? My client is a C-suite person at one of the big tech firms. She was never going to call me to tell me that. And so if she did not, I would have missed that. But because I know her attorney, we became a team that could help with that. So your advisor should be there to guide those decisions that I said. Can I buy this house? Should I get a mortgage? Should I get a 10-1 ARM or should I get a 30-year fixed mortgage? Should I think about a 529 or an UTMA or funding my kids' college in some other way? What should I do? Should I invest in alternatives? Should I invest in stocks or bonds, or what should my asset allocation look like? But not looking at you're an expert in all things money, because you know what? None of us are an expert in all things. In the same way we go to, as I said, a doctor, we go to a dermatologist, we go to a gynecologist, we go to our general doctor. They're experts in different things. Okay, so as we go into our next section, I think it's important to understand, what are we all being told all the time? What is in media? It's selfish to spend money on yourself. Women are bad investors. We spend money irresponsibly. All women's magazines are save, don't buy the shoes, not about investing. We wrote a very viral article a few years ago, but it's actually talked about a lot. Like, don't buy that coffee every day. And even my mother, who's a very financially savvy person, was like, I really needed that. Like, I felt super guilty by going to Starbucks every day, but it makes me really happy. So now I do again. So when you're thinking about what should you look for and expect and ask of that advisor, I'm going to go through some questions. So questions to ask yourself when assessing your own financial mindset and what you actually need. And I'm not going to kind of go through this line by line, but think about your own background with wealth. How did your family talk about wealth? How does that make you feel? And then it kind of goes into, I understand. When I think about my own family with wealth, that may have influenced how I am acting with my wealth now. Is it different than a sibling, especially if you had a brother? Was it different within there? Were there any events that happened in your life that you actually feel like influenced you on this? And then how does that kind of go into you as an adult? And looking at these other influences around us and thinking about how those are creating your story of money in your head. So what should you ask your financial advisor? And I actually think this is really important because a lot of people, and I'm not going to say women, men too, men pretend they're experts at this. Women just like to ask the questions, but what do you actually ask of your financial advisor? And I think what's important of these questions is you don't need to leave being like, oh my God, I totally understand everything. I could go be my own advisor now. I need to do this. I think actually what's most important is, did they speak to you in a way that you feel like you could understand what they actually meant? So when you're understanding, is my investment strategy aligned to my goals? Why? How? How is it allocated? I think this is important. For us at Ellevest, we invest in values aligned way. And so what is my money doing for the world? What impact does my money actually have? Do I have any milestones that will impact my investments? How do you expect to affect my taxes this year? So this is an important one of when I mentioned like tax loss harvesting. People understanding, oh, actually, wow, you could create a lot of losses for me this year and I can actually offset other income. So maybe I should think about something else in my life, thinking about that. And then the fees. Someone should easily be able to tell you how much they're paying in fees. If you have someone who has different lines and you're sitting there trying to calculate it, you need to be, frankly, you should get a report that shows you your fees. We send people what their fees are every single quarter, but they should be able to quickly answer you and not sit there and have to calculate what I am paying in fees. And unfortunately, that is not the norm. So what should your advisor actually ask you? They should be asking you, what are your goals? I do not believe in just what is your risk tolerance, because everyone says they're moderate, everyone. And when I worked at JP Morgan, 90% of our portfolios were moderate portfolios. Why? Because no one wants to say they're high risk, no one wants to say they're low risk. So what are your goals and how can we align that? Understanding if investing to your values is important to you. Looking at your past, understanding your past experiences. So if you had a financial advisor, how was it? If you didn't like them, why? What was it about the relationship that didn't work? So that they can really make sure that you're the right fit. I'll tell you, it's important as financial advisors that they are finding the right fit for them as much as you're finding the right fit for you. They should be asking you if you've invested through a downturn, understanding how you felt about that. So they can understand, okay, in a year like this, there are people who, don't even think about it, versus there are people who it really gives them angst. And so understanding how they can help you through that. Understanding how you want to interact. I have people, they're like, Emily, I never want you to call me. Please just text me when you need things. Fine, I can totally text you. That's totally fine. If that's what you're busy, text me. If you're like, I want to talk once a quarter in the first week of the quarter, understanding that and setting those expectations are really important for you not to be disappointed in your advisor and for them not to be surprised by you being disappointed. And then just understanding you. People always ask me when you're choosing an advisor, what's the one thing that they're not thinking about? And I always tell them, do they actually like their advisor? And it seems so small and something so irrelevant. But money is so personal, and you're going to have to tell them things that you don't tell your best friend, that maybe you don't even tell your spouse, that you don't tell your parents, that you don't tell your kids. And so you need to feel comfortable picking up the phone and calling them and not being like, oh, I have to talk to this person again. Oh, I don't want to do this. So just understanding, developing that relationship together. So going into the components of your strong financial foundation, understanding what should you be going through with your advisor, understanding your personal situation, your goals to build that personal portfolio for you. You should have a financial plan built for you to understand, what does this mean for you? And this can mean different things for people at different wealth levels. This could mean, can I afford my house? I want to give X amount of money to my kids and I want to put it in a trust now. So how will that affect my life? And looking through all of those types of things and understanding I have a low basis stock and it may be advantageous to gift it now when stocks are lower, things like that. I'm putting together that financial plan. And then understanding your financial mindset. So I want to talk about this concept more of the Find Financial Advisor in a little bit. This also goes through with your advisor, as I talked about, aligning your money to your values. And so investing your money to your goals while reflecting those values. This is just an example that I put together of a way that you can think about that, but understanding that impact investing, values-based investing is the first thing that's ever existed in the wealth management space that was not created just by financial institutions to sell to people, but actually was demanded by investors to financial institutions. And so there's still a lot of hesitancy on financial institutions' side. And so knowing that this is your money and advocating for yourself, if you want to reflect those values, these are some examples of some things you can think about within a portfolio, but understanding how you could invest in women's rights, racial justice, climate change, guns, all these different, away from guns, all these different things. And then understanding who the firm you're invested is with. I think this has really become more and more important lately. We had a woman actually say to us, I don't want my money invested somewhere I wouldn't want my daughter to work, which is something interesting I never thought about before. And when you think about the overall industry, a lot of the most financial advisors, over 85% of financial advisors are white men. The financial industry has actually gone backwards in diversity since 2008, backwards. And I mean, this just kind of tells it all here. The industry is 23% women, 23%, 11% people of color. And you look at like these numbers, is this how I want my money reflected as who I am? And so I even think just understanding, who is your firm? What does your diversity look like? We used to always tell people to ask, do forced arbitration, which is very important because most of the banks used to do that. And understanding, does the institution that you're invested with also reflect your values? So let's say your advisor's not asking you these questions. They're not aligned to you, all these things. What do you do? How do you do this? I tell you, I've written a lot of emails for people to break up with their financial advisor, a lot. And understanding, we actually came up with this cost of a fine financial advisor a few years ago. And it was really through a woman who has a very big job, is pretty well known in this country. And she sent us her statements and she wanted to invest a small part with Ellevest. And I was like, wait, hold on. What's going on with your stock options here? Like, they expire next year and does your advisor not told you what to do? She was like, yeah, no, what? And because she never made a plan on there, it cost her a literal IRS check of $3 million more, like a check to the IRS, not like a $3 million capital gain, a $3 million check because she had an item. And when I told her, she was kind of like, yeah, but like, feel bad firing him. And there are real costs. And so this kind of came the real cost to this fine financial advisor. And it's important to understand that only 16% of households, women actually lead investing. Yet 74% of women have a negative surprise when their money comes back to them. So that's either through death or divorce. So understanding that it's so important to get involved in that now. So why to break up with your advisor? If you feel like you're more committed to the relationship than them, that's a problem. You're always asking to meet with them. There's no proactive approach. They're not communicating with you or the way that you want to, as I noted, understanding how you want to communicate. You feel like they're not pulling their weight for you, like you need more help and they're not willing to do it. I frankly, if a client was asking too much, I would say like, this is our expectations. And actually we should pull in an expert CPA to help you with this, because like, that's actually beyond something I can do, but like we can solve for this. And if your values aren't aligned, as I noted. So how to actually do this? You don't actually have to. I'd say, it's nice to, but you don't actually have to if you don't want to. Your new advisor can actually pull your assets with your permission if you feel that uncomfortable with calling them. So know that you don't even have to call them if you really don't want to. I do highly recommend pulling off the Band-Aid. I often get asked, should I pull part of it because I feel bad because I've known him for 20 years and he came to my wedding and all of these things. But really just pulling off that Band-Aid and sending them an email or call, just thanking them for their partnership for all this time, but letting them know you're going another direction. And then finally, if you need an excuse, use impact. And so a lot of firms are still in the nascent stage of impact and say, you know what, it's not you, It's just that I want to be able to do something more with my money. And unfortunately, you're not at a place that can do that. So that comes to my conclusion. And I'm sorry, I feel like I went too long here, but the thinking about how to invest in your financial wellness. So I will put these in the chat so that you have this as well. This is just a link that has kind of more resources and stuff on it on a page. This is just for your group that we created this page. So feel free to take a look, and you can always email me, but I'll put these in the chat so that we can all see each other again.